It's been a journey to get here, but I think, and from what I've heard today, I think it can be very, very beneficial. The focus is on how do we break down these barriers to freight efficiency that were first identified at the charrette and then we dealt with in more detail at the founders meeting in August. How do we deal with an information vacuum in some cases, a lack of information, but also an excess of information? And how do we put the pieces and parts together? And this whole process, again, using the birth, is born of frustration, frankly. It's frustration of technology providers, it's frustration of fleets, it's frustration of owner-operators who really are betting the company every time they make a decision. They've only got a company of one, and whereas some company can afford to try it on 300 or 400 trucks, they've got to get it right the first time or they're out of business. So how do you deal with all this information, whether it's a lack of it or an overload? How do you deal with the fact you get married to something? You sunk costs in something that you have, and there's a point in which you've got to make a decision to walk away from it. It's quite a difficult, but you recognize you have to do that if you're going to make it into the next decade. And one of the things, I'd never seen that before, but I'm amazed that company still existed, you know, in the 2008, doing what they were doing, because obviously they were making some bad decisions. Trucking fleets and owner-operators cannot afford to do that. And by the way, technology developers cannot afford to do that either. ROI risk, the investment risk that we all have to take. How do we get enough information to make a decision? And I think what I'm going to say, and I think I was going to say, we're probably never going to have the level of detail. We can trust the data, but there's never going to be enough data. I don't know how many of you have worked with French companies, but I can tell you a French company, you never have enough data. Never, ever. But at some point you got to make a decision or you're frozen. So we're going to have to provide information and the capability so that companies and owner-operators and suppliers can re-examine their business models so that they can survive. So, how are we going to do that? Better incentives and communication can drive North American freight, the freight industry, to increased efficiency.